I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. I'm Jody England, and you're listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. It's great to be back with you this week after our unexpected hiatus last week. And, of course, today's topic will be a reflection of the evolution that was occurring within me and around me last week, which is why we decided to pause the show for last week. So I actually, as I said on the previous show, I spent the summer solstice weekend in deep ceremony. And when I went in, I had the intention of healing my incarnational wounding. And, you know, I don't roll small, right? I want to fix the biggest thing. So I went in with the intention of actually settling once and for all, what is this thing? What is this reason why I haven't allowed myself to be fully here? Like any ways that that's not occurring, I want those handled so that I can arrive soul and body on this earth fully available for my purpose. And it was 3 days of intense work and beautiful miracles and unusual experiences. And I just felt so full of myself at the end. And so we ended ceremony on Monday, and then I, just had this really internal period, I mean, that was really what the experience was about, is filling with myself. And so I, spent a couple of days actually just being with that. Like I didn't have anything to give to anyone else. And it wasn't from a place of burnout or drain or hiding, which is, how it has happened in the past. But it was really just this sense of completeness and wanting to just be with myself and to integrate all that I had been playing with. And so when it came time for the show on Wednesday, I was like, can I do this? Can I just not do the show? And I tried it on a few different ways, and ultimately it was like, no, it's really more honoring of me, and the medicine for all of us is that it is perfectly acceptable to go internal, and we don't have to do it like the men do. So when we need to go internal, that's what we do. And it was beautiful to receive all of your love and support around that as that occurred for Viv and I both. So today, we are going to be talking about embodying our essence, incarnating fully as human beings in this life. And I have invited one of my best friends. She is one of my favorite wise women on the planet. She is, her name is Jeshua Love, and she is a poet, a mystic, a shaman, teacher, a medicine woman, and a death doula. And she truly does live as though life is her medicine. She is the most divine expression of love and grace. And every time I'm with her, I want to be love, right? I feel the vibration of that. And she really knows a lot about incarnating and the blocks there too. So I thought, what a great, rich conversation. She and I were having this conversation offline, and I said, you know what? We should do this on the radio show. So we are both coming from a space of not having anything figured out, but very open to sharing our experiences and our vulnerabilities around this tricky issue of incarnating our souls into our human bodies. So without further ado, I welcome my friend Joshua Love. Hello, Joshua.
Hello, love.
Hello.
Thank you so much. So beautiful to be here with you.
Mm-hmm. You too. So welcome. And let's all just receive a breath here together. As I was feeling into the show today before we got here, I was noticing there was like a heaviness, that I was feeling around the energy. And I was like, wait a minute, incarnating can be fun. That's what I learned this weekend. But I certainly had a story about it before then, that it would, probably be the end of me in some way. So let's just dig in here, Joshua. Mm-hmm. And do you want to share any of your story about, your journey toward incarnation?
Sure. Yeah. This is such a potent topic, and I love that you're diving right into this. And I believe that many people are walking through life with resistance to fully incarnating because of the messiness of this human world and what it feels like if we fully incarnate, if we fully dive in, then we'll have to be more in the messiness. And so anyway, I love that we're speaking right into the heart of this, and from the invitation that we are living for ourselves to take this opportunity to really embody, to really be here. And really extend that invitation to everyone. My path, I call it a path of holy descent, because in so many spiritual traditions, it's about ascending and transcending and moving up and out. And that came very easily to me as a soul, as I'm sure it did to many listeners. Perhaps particularly so because I was very sick as a little girl. I had meningitis at 18 months, and after surviving that, was left with a lot of neurological issues and was wearing leg braces and dealing with asthma. And, it felt like there was a tremendous weight of suffering in both my own human body as well as in our human world. And I heartily resisted coming all the way in. And so from an early age, I really sought refuge in spirit and in my imagination and in psychic capacity. And what was interesting was that my body continued to manifest sickness until I was 19, and I was faced with a very dramatic health situation which called for 2 surgeries. And because I was so energetically attuned, I actually knew that the sickness was born of my essential ambivalence about being here. And after I survived that final surgery, which was a pretty dramatic experience, I knew that I needed to finally make a choice, either to fully go or to fully stay, that I could not simply hover above my life any longer. And so I said yes. I chose to live, to be of the flesh and this world, and really dive all the way in. And part of that practice for me was actually making a very brave choice to study dance and to begin to practice yoga and to actually, even with the neurological damage I was working with in my body, to dive right into that messiness, to that shame that I experienced as an imperfect body, as a body that looked great, but my experience of it inside was that there was some kind of brokenness. So that was the beginning of my process of really head on looking at my ambivalence about being here, about being a body, about being a woman, about the messiness of this human life. And I'm 40 now, and I feel like it's an ongoing process of choice, really every day, to choose to be here, to be intimate with my own experience, to be fully of the flesh and of this world, when it's so much more comfortable still to part of me to move up and out, or to be in the invisible realm where we are all one in spirit. It's a much more steep learning curve and ripe opportunity of evolution for me to dive all the way into this individual human being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about my human journey.
Yeah, I love that. And this is why I wanted to have more than one perspective in the show, because for me, the incarnational journey looked a lot different, because I wasn't always so attuned to the up. So I was very asleep. I was very asleep early in my life. I was not around people who were awake. I wasn't easily connected to spirit. And so for me, it looked like I was living a regular life in, Midwestern Ohio. But I did, have regular root chakra issues. I always had GI issues and bowel troubles and urinary troubles, and no one was around me to speak to those in any way other than a traditional medical perspective. And so I just sort of thought, well, that's how I'm made, and that's kind of a bummer, but okay. And then when I started waking up energetically, it really was more about like, okay, let's clear the things that are in the way of me being my essence. And in that way, I was still connecting up, right? Like essence felt like a way out of the body, because I would be feeling my spirit, right? And so as I continued to excavate, and we've played with this on the show where we like turn our essence up and imagine filling the body out, right? Which really is a way of embodying the essence. But there's a way that you can do that not actually in your body, is what I discovered. And so what started happening for me is maybe when I turned about 30, well, actually after I had my children, right? So of course, a huge root chakra occurrence. Mm-hmm. And then everything got activated. So I started having nervous system problems and even more intense GI problems. And, nothing was really fixing those. And so the body really did feel like a place I did not want to hang out. And it's only as I've started to really play with this experience of actually being embodied that I have now a discernment around. The feeling for me before was sort of like my spirit dragging my body around like a carcass, like here's this thing that I'm tethered to that has to be part of the package, but I'm going to be in it as little as possible, Yeah. And I had a lot of people read energy from me and tell me things like that about not being in my body. And I was like, yeah. I'm just, up here like this, and this is how I do it. And then it just became really obvious that that was no longer working. To be whole, I actually do have some relationship with this body. And so I started to get curious about why is that, or what is that? And so, Joshua, I think I would love to hear, because I think there may be people who are like, I have some of those symptoms, or, I have a feeling that I might not be in my body, but like, what is the point? And so I'm curious, like, why do you think it's so difficult for souls to incarnate?
I feel like this word incarnate it's such a beautiful word. It's like embody in. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's the same reason why it's difficult for us to come all the way in is the reason why it's difficult for us to fully be with our own grief, or fully be with our own terror, or fully be with the incredible crises that are occurring on our planet right now. It's like we fear that if we're really with it, if we really feel the depth of our terror or the human suffering on the planet, that we will be swallowed by it. Or if we fully come in to the body, we will be, a lot of people live with pain. So to move up and out away from the pain is actually a defense mechanism away from actually being with the pain. And yet, ironically, sometimes just diving right into the pain, be it physical or emotional, or really allowing ourselves to feel the suffering of the planet and letting our hearts break completely is the way to deeper freedom and peace. And yet it's counterintuitive. It's completely counterinstinctual. We want to move away from what feels like the source of pain or suffering, whether it's in our emotional body or physical body or in the body of the world.
Yes.
And yet by avoiding it, we actually are inside of this existential angst around, not wanting to fully be where we are.
Yes. And for me, the emotional pain, because I was really not in the body so much. So the physical pain was just, okay, that's not pleasant. But the emotional pain was huge around this belief that if I come into the body, I won't be able to be as expansive as, I can see better from up here. I have this bird's eye view of everyone all the time. I have this big mission on the planet, and how can I do it from this little body, Yes. And so, that felt really true to me. Like, I can't imagine how this could really serve me to be in the body.
Right.
And then this weekend, when I actually had the experience of being in the body for 3 days in a row, I understood actually that having my soul embody this vessel actually allows me to become more magnetic. It allows me to have even more impact in this 3D realm than I can when I'm hanging above it, dragging along the carcass, right? Like, there is a point to these two things coming together.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually, I'd love to just share, a few of the really cool manifestations that have occurred as a result of this embodiment work. Is I came out of the ceremony and, I had this really kind of internal week. And while I was being internal, but also, right, embodied, I got an invitation for an interview from the New York Times to talk about my website and my photos, right? So a really cool invitation, and also totally tied to my embodied essence out in the world, right? Suddenly there was juice within that site, right? And then I got an invitation from Laura Hollick, who I know many of you know, to be part of her next new Icon movie, which is filming next week. And she's like, I don't know what you were up to this weekend, but you just showed up on my reading screen so powerfully. And the theme, get this, the theme of the movie this year is Embodied Essence.
So perfect.
So perfect. So this is what happens. It's yes, I was doing my work in the world prior to that, but as I actually landed in the world, now I'm more visible. Now I can be seen and felt, and I can touch people in a different way. Yeah.
Yes. I wonder, you were speaking a few minutes ago about that you could feel that there was something, even though it was counterintuitive, that there was something that in order to become whole, you needed to come in. And I wonder if you could share what some of those signs were, that something wasn't fully lined up for you. Like, how could you feel that?
That's such a great question. I want to ask you the same question. So the first one was, I was having a heck of a time straightening out my lower chakras. So the first and second chakras, every time I checked in on them, they were closed. As I started to move into my sensuality, it was hard for me to maintain turn on, right? So like I could have sex with my husband, but I wanted to live in turn on. And I have, beautiful role models of embodied women that I'm around. And I'm like, why can't I do that? And then I've had these allergies, like where I've been allergic to everything, smells and foods, and I mean, you name it. And so I feel like I'm constantly bombarded and like withdrawing from the world. And, you know, as I know that that's about feeling under attack or feeling not safe. And so the warrior in me is like, wait a minute, I'm not under attack. Why won't my body get on board with that? You know? And so I had to look inward, like, okay, what am I missing? What is the thing that would have me really feel fully here? Right? And then the other piece was, I just had this question of like, well, why would I choose to come here if I wasn't actually going to be here? You know, like I do believe we choose our journey. So I just kept coming back to there was some reason why I thought it made sense to be rooted here. So I need to get rid of the last of this story that has me feeling like I got left here by mistake, or I don't belong here, or I'm biding my time until I get where I would rather be. I need to get through that so that I can really do what I came here to do. So that's what it felt like for me. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Yeah, well, I would say, you know, when I look at the past, it was really an issue of life or death for me. Like I could really feel that because of the way my soul is, that unless I could come in with a full yes, it just wasn't going to work. My body was just not going to hang in there. And you know, it was being proven because I was actually manifesting illness. And so that was the original sign that I wasn't fully here, was that my body was falling apart. And I think that the ongoing, you know, like I said, I feel very humbled about this, really, Jody, because I feel like I am still, I mean, I was writing the other day and I was writing about, you know, about it taking an entire lifetime of breath to come all the way in. You know, the irony of that we might spend an entire lifetime coming in, descending, only to finally, you know, grace willing at the end of a very long, deeply well-lived, beautifully offered life, then, you know, passing on. And so I really see it not necessarily as something that, you know, happens and then it's over, but that it's more of the ongoing choice to continuously come in, to continuously say yes to this day, to this moment, to this experience that I'm feeling in my heart. And really the motivation for that is that it's actually, at this point in my life, it's more painful to not be fully present. I want to be here with my children. I want to be here with whatever's present. I want to be here with what's in the world. I want to bring my gifts all the way through and translate them all the way through. And so I know that, I just know intuitively that the path for that is in this continual, humbled, down on my knees, yes to life, yes to this body, yes to these challenges, this yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you for saying that, because, you know, in this moment, in this high of having this new experience of like so contrasting, I'm like, I totally did it. I'm done. Handled. Yeah. Yes. And I can totally feel, you know, there are moments where like what I've noticed is this embodiment has me so much more present, which was really a rare occurrence for me because I'm, you know, fairly high octane, as you know. So I'm always running forward and striving and outward. And what I've noticed is anytime I check in with myself, like, okay, am I embodied? Then the striving goes away. I laid on the floor this morning with my husband. I was laying on the biomat meditating for 2 hours, and then he came out and he laid on the floor with me, and I was like, I'm so present now, you know, like I'm not actually searching for where I would rather be, which is what I always was doing. And you know, he's really been noticing that as well. Like we were driving in the car and he put his hand on my leg and he's like, it's so wild to feel energy in your leg, because normally it's a little dead there. It's a lot dead there. And he said, it's really cool. Like, I can see you in your body, and it's very sensual and amazing and beautiful. And of course, you know, he loves having me be actually present with him after 17 years of marriage. So, you know, I am aware that this is, you know, certainly a milestone along the path of even more down and in. And also because it's so markedly different from where I was, it's like, ta-da!
Well, and I think there really are, you know, there are, thank goodness, these sacred milestones that are such confirmation and affirmation for us of, okay, yes, you've made this choice and here are the fruits. And now you get to actually experience me being more juicily alive in your woman form. And wow, this is the result of that courageous journey of yes. And then we are challenged, as is the nature of life. You know, we are challenged, we are tested, and it's those moments, you know, where we might be habitually inclined to move up and out, where we actually make a different choice, and we choose to stay in, and we choose to stay with the sensations that are in our body, and we choose to really be present with what's here. That the deepening occurs, you know, the sacred deepening of that fruit, of that yes.
Yes. And I'm just called to share also that, you know, things are not perfect. I actually, a week or so before this ceremony, I developed a urinary tract infection. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because I'm coming in to heal these incarnational issues, root chakra. And then when I came out of ceremony, I had experienced the UTI throughout the weekend. But when I actually came out of ceremony, it was intensely painful. And it was weird because my whole body felt amazing and I was so happy. And yet there was this searing pain, right? And so I ended up having to go to the urgent care. And so I'm still actually, like, I took antibiotics for the first time in, you know, about 7 years. And it was really interesting. As I was telling Joshua this story yesterday, I actually heard my core events in it. You know, I was like, oh, like, you know, all my help had left because I had all these beautiful shamans here who had been doing energy work on me and supporting me. And, you know, they had all gone home. And then I tuned into myself and I was like, uh-oh, I might be in some trouble here. Like, it was completely my core event replay. So there's still this human piece, right? Like, the forgetting wants to come back in front all the time, you know? And so it really is like, it still definitely is a garden that needs tended to, for sure.
Well, isn't that very human pain and our willingness to be with it that which almost is the foundation for this choice of embodiment and deeper incarnation? I mean, it's also the deeper joy and the deeper capacity to give our gifts and all those positive things that we love. But it's about that our yes includes the yes to everything that we don't prefer, you know, the urinary tract infections of life and the moments of feeling lonely and the moments of feeling overwhelmed by parenting, or all this human experience that if we turn in, it's the counterintuitive turning in towards it, to be fully in it, to open our hearts wider inside of what's uncomfortable, and trust and pray and find the deeper faith there, you know, that I think is what marks this choice for embodiment, this choice for incarnation, rather than, okay, this doesn't feel good, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm. Truly. And I really feel like when I tune into the energetic of you speaking that, Joshua, it feels like that really is our untaming. You know, it's like there's this pristine soul who likes it where it's good and easy and blissful. And then there's this, like, completely opposite experience, which I think is why we choose it, because we want to know ourselves as other than one, as other than everything, you know? And so we come here for these contrasting experiences of pain and separation and forgetting and all of those pieces. And so it feels to me like as we root down and in, we are living this wild, untamed life where we get to really be in this vibrant, full experience that has the whole spectrum of emotions and experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I would love, I know that you have a poem that you have written about this, and I just want to say again, Joshua is an amazing shamaness with her words, and she actually has a beautiful CD that she's put together with her poetry. We'll talk about that later. But if you feel compelled to share some words here, it feels like there may be an opening with those.
Yeah, this would be a good moment. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to. I think just to lead up to it, I will say that I've been really, the poem is called Gravity that I'm going to share, and I've been really so curious and fascinated around this concept of gravity from a spiritual perspective. You know, like what it takes to land into the weight of our own human matter. And, you know, I think it takes a lot of courage, actually. And it takes a lot of courage to feel into our connection with our ancestry and to feel into our connection with our children's great-grandchildren, you know, who might potentially come to this world. And it takes courage to actually feel like part of a continuum in this humanness. It takes courage for me, you know. I think for some people it really actually comes very naturally. But I felt, like I was saying before, so at home in spirit, so at home in the vastness, so at home in the spaciousness, and less at home in this little human expression. And so I'm still in the process of really finding my way through this bridge. And so anyway, so I wrote this poem called Gravity. Courage is another name for the heart. To find it, we must stop and listen to this which yearns to simply live, to fully become, to finally release its weary, frightened grip within us. We think we want some awakened luminosity, the open hand of transcendence, some grand or private, majestic escape from the dreary weight of human existence. We think we crave that lift, that wide exhaling soar, that buoyed breath of light, right? But I'll tell you, my love, what we truly yearn for is the flesh, our very own blood and bones to be the only home we seek. It takes courage to listen to the heart's want for body, for gravity, for this bittersweet gem of impermanence. Distinct from bravery, our valiance is uncalled for. Put down your weapons, your cape, your skillful wand, your shining sword. Because all that is wanted finally is to let what's infinite meet your beating heart. Lift your fingers to your face. Trace the edges of your skin. Lay your footprints on the land and taste the rain. Taste the rain. It takes courage to listen to the heart's want for body, for gravity, for this bittersweet gem of impermanence. Courage is saying yes to the next vow, the next birth, to new love in the wake of loss, inside waves of grief, in the certainty of continuous imperfection and endless possibilities of failure. Courage is saying yes, still yes, when we wake up in the morning alone and tired, our bodies worn and minds torn down by everything in life not being what we thought. Because all that is wanted, finally, is to purely love what's here, knowing soon it will be gone. And all that is needed, finally, is your open ear pressed with attentive curiosity, eavesdropping at the door of your heart. And then this, the simple courage to hear what's said. And all that is needed, finally, is your open ear pressed with attentive curiosity, eavesdropping at the door of your heart. And then this, the simple courage to hear what's said.
So beautiful. I had goosebumps as you were reading that. I always do when you read.
I think it's, this issue of impermanence is something really beautiful to look at in terms of the choice around incarnation and embodiment, because, the only thing that's really certain in life is that eventually we will die. Mm-hmm. And that actually, I think a lot of people resist fully embodying, because to fully be inside this body, we can't help but be intimate with its temporary nature. Mm-hmm. And that elicits a sense of fear for a lot of people. And yet, if we can fully be here, then we can actually, just revel in an actualized way in the preciousness of our life, in the preciousness of these relationships, in the preciousness of, the hot shower on our skin and the sun kissing our face, and the simple things of walking through this life as a human being in a body who loves, who is attached, who is imperfect, who makes mistakes, just all of it, to really allow the preciousness of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as you're saying that, I was just getting present to, it's almost like the saying yes to the incarnation really is the death, right? Like once you incarnate, you've already experienced the fear of the death. And so then death really isn't the issue later on. But many of us spend our entire lives avoiding the actual death and not ever living the life.
That's right. And as we meet that death, what we really realize, what we're really terrified of, is living fully, completely, bravely, profoundly, and allowing. I mean, I work with this right now. This is not something I've, I'm in the process of a deeper leaping, I would say, of realized faith around this. But, to really be like, wow, I have something to say. I have something to say with this little life, this little brief life. I have something to give. I want to give it. Wow. I want to be exposed in this giving, and to feel how terrified we are of, it's like that hope and that fear of being seen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so much, unconscious programming and, from our core wounding where it felt unsafe to be here, or, we felt like we were giving up our power as we slipped into our forgetting. And so, I think so much of that is running the show. It was interesting how much of that was coming up for me this weekend, as I was clearing that, was like, that doesn't even make any sense. And yet it feels so true. It feels like it really is true that if I fill up with myself, I can't serve anyone else. That felt true until it didn't, So, yeah.
It might be interesting to expose some of those belief systems, that we've had that have been in the way of that yes, or that because the truth is, as you incarnate, as you dive in, you get to meet all of all of the uncomfortable stories of resistance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's partly what is avoided is actually having to just tell the naked truth, really tell the naked truth to ourselves. That does take courage.
It does. And that's why, with this show, my intention is really for us to be radical truth tellers instead of us all secretly in our own corners being like, okay, I'm one of these days I'm going to do this incarnation thing, but I'm not going to talk about it until I have it figured out, right? It's like, no, we're all in the same boat, and so it's good to hear, why should I do it? And what does it look like? And how did it work for you? And how might it work for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, we might get a beautiful, I think there's still this tendency to feel like only if, let's see, what do I want to say? It's like conditional, like, okay, I will embody if that means that then I get to be more successful, more beautiful.
Yes. This is why I love her. She's so wise. She doesn't miss anything. Great. Yes, please speak to that.
Well, it's perfect for you to be in this really beautiful high moment, and I'm a little more
grounded. I don't know.
But really, there can't be finally in this experience of ongoing surrender to what wants our life. It can't be conditional. We can't go into it saying, okay, I'll give you this. I'll give you my full body if you give me this. But God, if you don't fully bless my life, then I'm not going to feel like you have my back, and then I'm going to disincarnate again. Or, there really has to be such a deep, profound willingness to lay it all down, not knowing whether that means that we're going to feel more financial abundance, or we're going to, glow with a certain radiance and be more attractive, or we're going to get more clients. It's really a much deeper willingness that is not conditional on any of those externals.
Yes, and that is the death, right? I mean, you and I had this conversation before I went into ceremony, because I knew what I was going in with, and Joshua shared this beautiful advice with me because she could hear it in my talking, right? Of like, I'm going to do this so that blah, 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 Right. And she was like, well, honey, that's not going to really, that's not really going to get you where you want to go, because you can't die still in the driver's seat. It's not how it works. You have to literally free fall and be willing to let go of everything. And it was wild because from a headspace, I couldn't really access, like I understood that she was right, but I wasn't ready to let go of it. And then as I was in the ceremony, I was able to fall through the layers and realize that it wasn't actually about letting go of everything or having to be broke or having to, blow my life up in order to do this. It was being willing to have the detachment from those things. That is the death, right? You won't end up having to give them up. For the most part, I don't think you will. But I also think it's like, how do you find that free fall space where you can really stop reaching for the edges and just say, okay, take me.
I think also, it's such a mystery, isn't it? It's like there's such a feeling of, and it's very hard to not walk through life like, I will do this so that I get this. And yet there is a certain suffering and imprisonment, even just in the subtlety of that belief system. It's a weight, it's a burden. And the truth is that life is mysterious, and life does include unfathomable tragedy. I think of my dear sister whose 3.5-year-old son died suddenly, tragically, and so protected and so loved, and so much light around that family. And sometimes things happen, and so I feel like, Jody, love, it's like you and I make this commitment to being here and to incarnating because we are compelled to live lives that are offered in love. And how do I come to that place? Well, I come to it because I know that what I took birth for was to learn and to live and to love as fully as possible. And that doesn't mean that my heart doesn't break and that there aren't moments where I'm not overcome with grief, or I don't feel like a free life or an awake life or an embodied life is free of the human experience of suffering. But I feel that to fully embrace that suffering and open our hearts wider to it, we actually aren't burdened by it. We actually can allow the pain and all of the things, the joy, the ecstasy, the raindrops, are the way we feel about Fukushima and Monsanto. All of it then informs the way our hearts offer themselves to the world.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you, and I think that's one of those tricky life cones, right? That, it's like, oh, when you detach from suffering, there will be suffering, but you will not care. It'll be a different experience of suffering because you won't be trying to not suffer. So it's such a beautiful invitation. And I think there's a couple of things I want to say. Actually, while I'm saying those, if you have a question for Joshua or for me, there's a little chat button on the player that you're listening to. If you click the chat button, you can type a question in there, and it can be for me or Joshua. So go ahead and do that if you would like us to answer anything for you. But there's two things that I'd like to say. One is this incarnation issue it doesn't play out the same way for everyone. And so Joshua and I tend to be more spirit oriented. And so for us, there's a lot of struggle about coming down and in, but there is a particular soul path, maybe a couple, for sure one, that actually is extremely embodied and really has the opposite issue. So my husband is that, and I was having that experience with him this weekend of in the middle of ceremony, sitting with him and feeling how close together his molecules are and how he's so present and he doesn't long to be anywhere else. And I was joking with him saying, like, you're homegrown, you're homegrown, you're from here, you sprouted up from the ground. That's what it feels like. Mm. And so for him, the reach is getting less landlocked and more in tune with spirit, right? Because he's so down, he's lost the conduit up. And then for others of us, we're still finding the conduit down. So, just know there are a couple different flavors of this. And I feel like a lot of people who listen to this show tend to be more spirit oriented. But I just want you to know the others of you, I see you, who are also not having this experience. And that's, there's another piece of work for you to do.
Well, what's beautiful about that, Jody, is that I think the landing ground where we can actually experience profound wholeness, almost like an inner marriage has taken place, is the same for both the people, those souls who are more homegrown, as you call it, or people who are more, have had a tendency to hover. Mm-hmm. Because it's the coming, it's the allowing God in every cell of our bodies, the allowing, or that can be a charged word for people, but love or spirit or mystery or source. And so really for both types and all in between, the call to that experience of wholeness that includes the human matter and includes the brightest of the bright aspects of our more transcendental selves.
I love that. It's a reaching up or it's a reaching down, but ultimately it's a wholeness. That does feel like the commonality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I feel like there may be some more poetry that wants to be shared.
Sure. Yeah. So let's see.
As Joshua's feeling into this, I'll just say, whenever she shares words, sometimes they're her own and sometimes they're from someplace else, but she has this beautiful gift of tapping in energetically to exactly the right thing, which just, means something to everyone listening. It's really, really beautiful. No pressure.
No pressure. Right. So this is a newer poem I'm gonna read called "Lean In," and it's also about this issue. And I think for me, actually, this process where I've been in more recently is actually this coming to peace with an experience that I am rooted in the stars. That the goal is not to become rooted in this realm for me, and that I had this idea that, wow, my feet are in the stars and my crown is in this world. And I'm offering my crown to this world, and it's kind of upside down, Mm-hmm. And this idea of being winged, of how to be winged like the birds are winged on this planet, but fully engaged, fully receiving the gifts of this world, fully offering their gifts to this world. And so, it's really in this ongoing inquiry that I am in as a heart, as a soul, around embodiment and incarnation. This poem came forth called "Lean In." Waiting for the new prayers to come upon this heart, this day, this life. Waiting for a new faith to rise in my throat as a sun through my eyes, to taste my walk and become my embrace. A faith that knows enough space to include this weary weight of human angst. A faith that can stretch with the ever expanse of truth. Rooted in the stars, my crown is offered to this world. But tell me how to bring the majesty of this medicine down into the gravity of this realm. How to become the gracious bridge that unites all worlds. I know my time here is lit and waning as the wick of a burning flame, and that this life is not about getting anything. So simply allowing the flame to shine, to let God live through this body, this breath, this hand, this kiss, this word. To let God take the reins of my faith. Let God hold vigil at this devoted flame of my life. Show me how to be this winged then, as a fallen feathered star, while nourished by the meat and nectar of this land. Hummingbird, can you show me how your stillness is found, buoyed by the breath, surrender in action? Eagle, can you show me your empowered way of ease, your committed swoop of grace between the realms? Lean in, daughter, just lean in and fall to trust my winds, to guide your coast. Lean in to land, to simply open your mouth and eat what I feed you. Do not question the feast, nor fear the famine. Every moment I am holding you. Every moment I am holding you.
And that is a reason to incarnate. I felt that from inside my rib cage. It was so heart expanding. Beautiful, beautiful. So I think we actually have a comment or two, but I can't locate them. I think people might be posting on the page because I've seen the little notices pop through, but I can't see them. So, sorry, ladies. What we will do is Joshua will be joining us in the tribe. So if you want to just post your comments there, we can continue our conversation. If you're not part of the tribe yet, you can find us at facebook.com/groups/Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe. Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe on Facebook. And also, Joshua, can you tell them if they would like to read and hear more of your poetry, how can they do that?
Yeah, thank you, love. So I created a CD of poems and commentaries, and it also has beautiful music by the band Mamuse on it that they improvised to surround the poems. And the CD is called Take Heart. And 2 words, Take Heart. And you can get it on my website, which is Jeshua.com. It's JESUA.com. And you can also get it on CD Baby. You can also read some of my poems that are posted, as well as other writings. I keep a blog, and I'm a practicing healer and have a shamanic healing practice. So you can read about my work there at Jeshua.com.
Beautiful. And Joshua, could we post the 2 poems you shared today? Could we post those in the tribe as well?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yes.
Yes.
So we have a couple minutes left, and I just want to have each of us tune in and see, is there anything else that needs to be added to this discussion?
I think it'd be beautiful, Jody, in this moment where you're feeling so embodied and so incarnated and like you really are at this milestone moment, for you to really share just in this present moment what that feels like.
What a beautiful invitation. I feel solid. I feel myself all the way down into my feet. I feel emotional. I feel like there's this body is my partner, and it's an instrument to be used to further my purpose. I can feel the point, you know? I feel the coolness of the table under my hands. I feel the hardness of the stool underneath my bottom. In contrast to my usual way of watching that from above, watching my hands touch the table. But I now feel it. I feel it from inside here. And it feels like I've arrived on a playground of the most juicy tools and contraptions and things to play on and with. And, you know, each meal that I'm experiencing is like, has food always tasted this good? Oh my gosh. You know, making love to my husband. I mean, orgasmic through the whole body. Like, what? I didn't know that could happen. So, you know, it's so beautiful what was coming to me as I tuned in with what wants to be shared. It's that it's worth it. It is worth it. And also, you're not doing it wrong, right? The struggle is part of the game. And so I just want to say that, like, wherever you are in the game, there is no, you know, end point to it, as we've said. And also, each milestone is so worth it. Yeah. So lean in. I love that. I love those as our final wise words, to lean in. I thank you, Joshua Love, for being the light and the wisdom that you are in my life and to the world. And I look forward to sharing your genius with our tribe and our listeners.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And I just love you. And I'm so honored to get to share this life with you in all the ways we do.
Mm-hmm. Deep bow, sister.
Deep bow.
Until next time. Bye, everyone.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. Illumination for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake. For God.